Sweet. Well, thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it. Yeah, we just got this grant last month, so we're kind of trying to get it started here. Thought I'd start with the intro on me. I am Maddie Levesque. I use they, them pronouns. I am my real job, I guess, is the built environment compliance reviewer for DAHP. So I do all Section 106, all Governor's Executive Order 2102 for the state-funded projects, capital-funded projects, and all the SEPA reviews for the state of Washington whenever there's built environment involved. So we review 18,000 projects a year. So I am busy. So hence me hiring someone to help us with this grant. I'd love to be able to do it myself, but obviously that's not a good goal for me. So just thought I'd add on a consultant. I'll obviously be heavily involved in the process. I'm very passionate about queer history and actually did my master's in public history. I did my thesis on a National Register nomination for Compton's Cafeteria in San Francisco, which is still in the works. So it's taking forever. But that's the challenge with the queer sites with very limited integrity. So looking forward to talking more about that in the future with you guys. But yeah, so I'm very in tune with the queer history of San Francisco and the Bay Area, but I moved up here about a year and a half ago, and so I've been kind of learning more, trying to get more connected with the community up here, but definitely looking for a consultant that can help bridge that gap as well and make some additional connections with queer community groups up here as well. So yeah, but I'm very passionate about this project and can't wait to get started. So there's actually, I'll mention this probably when I'm going through the RFP as well, but there are currently no sites on the National Register in the state of Washington for specifically being called out for their contributions to LGBTQ history. So that is going to change soon, hopefully, with this grant. But yeah, so I thought I'd just kind of walk through the grant first. Or actually, yeah, does anyone want to like introduce themselves and kind of let me know who you guys are, and we'll just go around real quick. Know a few of you. Holly, start. Go.
Oh geez. Okay. So introduce, I'm Holly Borth. I am a senior architectural historian with Statistical Research, Inc. I'm relatively new to the position. So this is the first kind of cute question and answer I've had for something like this. So do you want me, I do have questions, or do you want to go around first and have people introduce?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
I'll go through the RFP to start, I
Right.
think, and
Okay.
the questions, hopefully, if they're not answered in that process, I think that would be good.
Okay, yeah, sounds good.
Whoever wants to go next, yeah.
I'll jump in. My name is Stephen Treppers. I'm an architectural historian with Rincon Consultants. We're largely based in California, but I'm up here in Tacoma, and I'm very excited to see this opportunity. I've had the opportunity to assist with some evaluations of properties in West Hollywood and San Francisco area as well with LGBTQ history, and really appreciate it's underrepresented. So, again, appreciate the grant and the opportunity and the efforts that you're pursuing here. So look forward to hearing more about it.
Thank you.
I feel the same. I'm Chris Ann Beckner. I run the architectural history program with HRA out of Seattle, and I'm really glad that the state and the federal government are putting some money and some attention towards this. There's definitely a need for it, and would love to be a part of it. Thank you.
Hi, y'all. I'm Oliver Miska. I am a Seattle native teacher and educator, community organizer, and done some LGBTQ history work in California for schools and curriculum, but yeah, mostly do education policy as a lobbyist for Washington Ethnic Studies now. And do a lot of LGBTQ kind of coordinating. Yeah, just community organizer across the board. But yeah, excited to be in conversation with y'all and hear more about this project.
I'll go next. I'm John Rush. I'm an architectural historian and preservation planner at Architectural Resources Group. We, as a company, we're active in California as well. Our office in the Northwest is in Portland, which is where I sit. And yeah, so we're just really excited to hear more about this opportunity, and we'll save questions until a later point.
And Sharon, I think I keep seeing you talk and you're muted. So just so you know, we're not interrupting you constantly.
Can you hear me now? It says I'm muted.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Hi, Sherry Boswell, also from SRI and here in Seattle. And just glad to be a part of it, to see a few people I know as well. It's an exciting project. So can't wait to hear more from you about it. And we also have a couple questions. So great. Thank you.
I think the phone is Michael. So Adam, I think you're the last one.
All right, thank you very much. Adam Alsobrook, Senior Architectural Historian, Willamette Cultural Resources Associates.
Awesome. And Michael, if that is you on the phone, do you want to introduce yourself? Or if it's not someone, if it's not Michael, someone, whoever's on the phone, want to introduce themselves. Or not, totally fine. Maybe later. I think Michael's looking around at some buildings right now, so he's he's got a lot going on. But yeah, so yeah, again, thank you all for coming. I'm gonna share my screen here and we'll just kind of walk through the RFP. I don't want to go line by line because that can be a little much, but just at least like a quick overview. Gosh, I have so much going on here. All right. So we are not in the beginning here. So let me pull up to the top here. We kept it pretty broad just because we want to hear kind of what you guys are thinking and with this grant. And it's obviously a very broad undertaking with trying to cover all of Puget Sound LGBTQ history in one document. So I want to start off by saying this is going to be just scratching the surface for place-based history in the Puget Sound for the queer community. I know there's been some smaller projects that are more specific for like Seattle or Olympia and that kind of thing. So this is kind of culminating them all together and just creating a base level document for future like projects to just base things off of and go from there. So yeah, looking at the schedule here, we'll just kind of cover this real quick. So the proposal submission deadline is June 6th, and that's going to be before midnight on June 6th. I think it's like 11:59. So that's probably the most important thing, is to just make sure that we get them in on time. And then we'll be evaluating them the next few weeks, and hopefully there's a bunch of other things in here, but hopefully being able to begin the contract work on July 3rd. And if anyone has any questions about that, feel free to reach out to me. I will be the contact for this project. I'm the project manager for this one. So contact me with any other questions that are maybe not answered or specific questions. And yeah, you'll be sending that proposal to me as well. Go through the table of context here. So yeah, to start off, just the basic overview of what we're looking for here is we're doing a multiple property documentation for a queer historic context of the Puget Sound. So that's kind of the overhaul of the the work here, but in the process, we'll be creating intensive level and reconnaissance level historic property inventory forms on our Wizard database for Washington. So that's going to help with future reviews and that kind of thing, and making sure that we're recognizing that these places exist when doing project reviews. And then also, of course, with the underrepresented community grant comes a at least one new or amended National Register nomination. With these underrepresented communities grants, a lot of them are a lot of these sites are already on the National Register, just not being recognized for their contributions to queer history or Black history or Filipino history or that kind of thing. So amending a nomination could be fun too, but we said at least one because maybe we'll do two. Maybe we'll do one new and one amended, but just with what time allows and what the funds allow. Then I kind of go into a history. This is a lot of what I kind of included in the grant application, just to give an overview of what we're thinking. But yeah, basically just trying to recognize LGBTQ historical contributions over time in the state of Washington. Just giving a general overview of what we got going on over here, and making sure that the National Register really represents the full extent of the US population. So got to close those gaps a little bit. But yeah, I won't go into this too much. And then selfishly, another thing that an objective here is, since I do regulatory reviews, I review a lot of projects where it's a quick kind of run through of all these different buildings and that kind of thing. And so a lot of people are just looking for the architectural significance. And so having in those HPIs that we have, the historic property inventory forms, that there's some kind of LGBTQ connection or that kind of thing, just making note of that will be super helpful for my reviews to flag things and make sure that we're getting a survey done, an intensive level survey done for that property to fully understand the extent of its history. And so I think that'll help with making sure that these places don't disappear without people really knowing that they were there to begin with. So, or finding out 5 years later, oh, that was demolished and no one had any idea. So that's kind of another kind of side objective, as well as just getting that recognition from the National Park Service. And for minimum qualifications, obviously having a familiarity with queer history, especially researching queer history. That's can be kind of different from the normal methods. Obviously, I'm sure you guys are aware, for any underrepresented community, they won't just be writing the newspaper saying exactly what was happening with that building or that kind of thing. Oral histories are going to be a major major help for this research. Doing community outreach is a major part of this. I'm pretty good friends with Shane Watson, who did the LGBTQ historic context statement for San Francisco, and that was one thing that she repeatedly said to me, is that outreach is super important to make sure that we're getting a well-rounded representation of the community. And so that's going to be, we're going to try to do some talk back sessions and listening sessions and those kind of things. So one thing to keep in mind when working on that RFP is putting that that plan in there, that outreach plan. And of course, experience with the National Register is very important in this, and just understanding the requirements and what what NPS is looking for and what Michael Hauser, because he will be reviewing the National Register nomination and the multiple property documentation, what they're looking for to get these nominations through is really important to make sure that it's going smoothly and we don't have to do too much back and forth there. Yeah, I mentioned the public outreach component. Yep, criteria for National Register. Yeah, wizard. That is a big thing too. So being able to put things into wizard, because it's great to have all this research done, but if we can't put it into our wizard system, which is where we keep, it's the Washington Information System for archaeological, architectural and archaeological resource database. And then I put database again. That sentence, but if it's not in wizard, then it's gonna be not as helpful. So being able to input things into this database, having an account already, having past experience will be super helpful. Understanding how the historic property inventories work, because can be a little tricky. There's a lot of little tricks with wizard and workarounds that you need to know about, but of course I'll be here too, and I'm the built environment wizard representative as well for DAHP, so I know all those little tricks by now working with it. And then of course having some SOI qualified individuals in history or architectural history are going to be necessary for completing the multiple property documentation, the National Register nomination, and that kind of thing. And knowing how to take a photo is important. Funding. So the grant is for a total of $75,000, and that is a hard stop there. So that is all we can exceed for this project. So something to keep in mind. Period of performance. So as I mentioned at the beginning, the contract will start July 3rd, 2024, and it has to be finished. So it doesn't have to go for this entire time, but it has to be finished by February 15th, 2026. That is when the NPS grant contract ends. So it's a 2-year period, but obviously it doesn't need to go for that whole time. Hopefully it doesn't. Hopefully it's done before February 15th. Some definitions. Good with that. Again, I'm the RFP coordinator. There's the schedule again. We're doing the pre-proposal conference right now, so thank you for coming. Submission of proposals. Yeah, I've just kind of already talked about this, but yep, send them to me. Just some naming conventions in there too. Obviously, as this being an underrepresented communities grant, we're very interested in minority and women-owned businesses. Obviously, I mentioned that outreach is going to be an important part of this, and so having those connections with the LGBTQ community, having members of the queer community on your team, it would be helpful to build those connections. Obviously, with the queer community, there can be some security issues, and feeling safe in speaking about their history and their lives is a challenge that I've noticed in the past with projects that I've done. So it's important for them to feel safe with who they're talking about or with who they're talking to. Okay. Now this is kind of all legal jargon and such, so just gonna pass through there. But proposal contents, get into that here. So obviously a cover letter here with all that good info, the names and resumes. That's important because we need to submit that to NPS as well to make sure that the qualifications meet their expectations as well. And subs, if there's any subs or any connections with those local communities that you've made. that would be great as well. Or ones that you know of that would be willing to work with us. Statement of project approach, you know, the classics of a RFP. Yeah, schedule would be super helpful as well. And budget, gotta stay on budget. So, let's see. Yeah, that communication plan is going to be key for sure. That's going to be something that we're looking at pretty closely, just because this is such a, as I've said probably 5 times now, just a different way of approaching research compared to just going through newspapers and those kinds of things. So that public outreach will be key. Sweet. But yeah, that's basically that for what we're expecting from the RFP. I'm sure you guys will have questions too. And then just a more detailed scope of work. So minimum of the the MPD, of course. And that we'll want to get that complete, like before we close out the contract, we want it to get approved and everything from the advisory council for Washington, and then approved by the keeper as well. Or actually, Michael, does it get approved by the keeper? I can't remember. MPDs are this, so this is going to be my first MPD that I've actually worked on. So the process is a little different, but yeah, actually I don't think it gets approved by the keeper. The National Register nomination will though, so that's going to be important. And then the 25 to 50 recon level HPIs. So there's a historic context like category on HPIs, and we have one for LGBTQ. So making sure that's clicked for those, any photos, that kind of thing. And we say minimum because who knows, maybe there's more than 50 properties in Washington with queer history, but just kind of making sure that those are recognized. And I'm sure I'll help too with inputting extras if there's any. So, because I want them in there as much as anyone. So, and then there's the 10 intensive level as well. And we expect those to meet the Washington and state standards for cultural resource reporting, which kind of goes into how HPI should be created, like one resource, one HPI, all those good details. So familiarity with that would be super helpful as well. Nomination, obviously, talked about that. And then this advice, I have kind of skipped over this a little bit, but the LGBTQ survey advisory group, that was another thing that Shane in San Francisco mentioned as being super helpful. So identifying members that we could use on that advisory group. We definitely want at least one other academic to review the wording and that kind of thing. Academic meaning also like a preservationist. So obviously the whole advisory group will not be preservationists. We want members of the community who are preservationists in their own mind, I guess. So not trained in preservation, but care about preservation of the queer community. And we want it to be a pretty diverse group of representing, like we want trans people to be on there. We want Two-Spirit. We want all different ethnicities, that kind of thing, to make sure that we're telling the full story or scratching the surface on the full story. And so that's going to be a big part of this grant as well, and kind of wrangling them and making sure that they know expectations and know what they need to do. And so, of course, I'll be there to help as well, but just expectations, knowing that that is an expectation for this grant. We'll obviously be reviewing drafts as well. Michael will be reviewing drafts of the National Register nominations, and I'll be reviewing all of it We'll be, yeah, like reviewing all the HPIs as well to get them in our system. And progress reports will be super important. We want to be kept up to date. But I mean, I expect that we'll be in contact pretty frequently anyways. So that's good. And obviously products of communication, we're gonna be, obviously that's going to be part of that communication plan, is just making sure that we're doing social media posts. Me and Michael manage the social media for DAHP. And so those can be kind of, I mean, there's fun features now with like Instagram and stuff where you can collaborate on posts, and like if you want to post it on your Instagram, we can kind of have that be a cross post situation. We want to get like a pamphlet going for those public outreach events, and to have them in local community centers for queer community groups, so that they're aware of the of this grant and that we're doing this, and to reach out to us at any point. But yeah, that's kind of the deliverables. And yep, cost, talk about that. Yeah, I'll just keep going. That's just kind of the basics of a grant. But yeah, I think that's basically it. That's a very broad overview, obviously, of the RFP, but now we'll kind of get into the questions more. I feel like that's where a lot more will be shared. So I'll stop sharing real quick. And then, yeah, whoever wants to kind of start with questions, go ahead.
I'll start with a question that is going to sound super foundational, but I think it's probably a good place to start. But what does DAHP define as Puget Sound, or the Puget Sound region?
Yeah, so in the grant proposal, I focused kind of as four main cities or towns, I guess, of the Puget Sound, and kind of the diaspora of the queer community going through throughout those kind of regions. And so I focused on Bellingham, Seattle, Tacoma, and Olympia as the four kind of epicenters of the queer community. And so those are kind of the yeah, where we're focusing on, but obviously in between there's obviously going to be stuff in there. But yeah, I hope that helps a little bit. But that's a good question, because it means different things to different people. So also apologies if you hear my lawnmower going in the background. But any other questions?
I can follow it up with another sort of framing or definition related question. So reading the RFP, I know that there are, a number of themes that are introduced, including Two-Spirit Indigenous contexts, and then certain like political and social contexts, largely from the, look like the homophile movement and after. So I want to confirm what sort of time periods or themes DAHP had in mind to include in the context, or if it really is kind of a, is it meant to be a very comprehensive look at trans and queer history, even if that's just scratching the surface, or did you have certain more focused areas that you were interested in?
Yeah, absolutely. I think my perspective when I wrote the grant was more contemporary place-based history, so really like 50s onward. But I've gone to a few events to just kind of gauge interest in the project in Seattle and that kind of thing. And people have expressed interest in kind of those earlier periods of like the 1800s, and obviously Pioneer Square is super important in that conversation. But I think it's really going to be having those initial listening sessions to see what people want to be this document to be. I'm pretty open to whatever. Obviously, I'm only one member of the queer community, so I'm really open to whatever everyone everyone's perspective wants to be on this and what the scope should cover. Because yeah, obviously, I don't know if we could cover from the beginning of time in Washington to the present. That's obviously giant. And so I definitely want to narrow it down some way, and saying political activism in the queer community, that's basically everything too. So it's gonna be a challenge to try to figure that out. And I think those initial listening sessions and hearing from the community will help with that as well. And what comes up from our research.
I had a question kind of following up on that with the advisory group, just kind of the nuts and bolts of, that. One question was the bi-monthly, is that twice a month, or was that once every 2 months you were anticipating? And then also what sort of assistance in, identifying and coordinating, identifying the folks that would be contributing to that group and be involved, how much of that would be the consultant and how much of that would be on your end, kind of what to expect for that?
Yeah, I've definitely, well, bi-monthly, I was thinking every other month, just to limit it. Like, I don't want them to be, overwhelmed with too much going on, but also I think the schedule will kind of change as we develop more of the schedule overall. For example, I was talking to others who've done similar projects, and getting an idea of when they sent things to their advisory council, what worked, what didn't. And so that talk actually happened after writing this RFP. So conversations have already changed in terms of when to send things. So it might not even be bi-monthly, but just whenever needed, I guess. And also doing more of a chain review rather than sending it all to them at the same time, but having it sent to maybe the trained preservationists first as a first look, and then sending it to the community to more look at the content itself. Or vice versa, whatever way we're thinking. In terms of picking the advisory council members, I think DAHP, we have a lot of good people in mind already, but there's obviously holes in that representation that we were looking to fill. And so it's probably going to be like, I don't know, 60-40 in that sense of 60 us, 40 you, and picking those advisory council members. But yeah, we've identified a few. We've talked with the LGBTQ Commission as well, and identifying some good groups to reach out to and that kind of thing. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
It does. Thank you. That's helpful.
Awesome.
I have a follow-up question to these advisory group meetings as well. Is are we able to assume that they can be held on Zoom, or are we anticipating, would we prefer in person?
Yeah, I think Zoom is going to be very, obviously a lot of the historic context that I have known about and that have been done were done before COVID. And so we're in a different world now where we can really do those, utilize Zoom in that respect. So I think that Zoom for those advisory council meetings for sure. Maybe we'll do like one in person just so everyone can get to know each other, or maybe like a few varieties. Like I obviously the council is not going to be too big, but like max 10, I'm thinking.
Okay.
And so like maybe a few can meet here, a few can meet there, and so forth. But I definitely want to do some in-person outreach, not for the advisory council in particular, but just in general for the community, because obviously a lot of the institutional knowledge will come from the elders of the community. And so a lot of them, it's going to be a challenge with Zoom. So meeting in person, they'll feel more comfortable, I think, with talking with people. So definitely expecting some travel throughout the Puget Sound in that respect.
Makes sense. Thank you.
So my question is more just like a statement. This is definitely the scope of this RFP is out of my like expertise. I would work on curriculum instruction and working with the LGBTQ Commission to shape what is LGBTQ history within our schools, but it's very much connected, obviously, to this kind of work and designating and nominating spaces and, you know, place-based history. But I just wanted to shout out that I'd be happy to talk and consult with community orgs. And I just really was interested and invested in making sure this wasn't whitewashed and turned into a like pink washing LGBTQ. This is a gay business kind of, you know, run by the gay chamber of commerce. Like, I'm just not really here to protect from that. And would love to be a part of this conversation and curious to see what y'all are working on and want to learn more. But that's to say, yeah, this is super interesting and just would love to see where the conversation goes and who gets included. And I'm glad you're talking to the commission about it. And yeah, I just want to make sure there's overlap between ed and this kind of work. So thanks y'all for your work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm all there for sure. And my work in San Francisco was very much in that sense too, with focusing on the trans community and community of color within the LGBTQ community. So I'm definitely there with you. I am constantly trying to recheck myself in terms of who we're talking to make sure that it's not going to turn into that kind of whitewashed, pinkwashed situation. And yeah, I am very much in the mindset that I want this to serve the community and not be kind of like a just a document that sits on a shelf. So making it a how-to guide for nominating future buildings and future resources, because yeah, obviously not everyone is going to be a capital P preservationist, as some people say, in terms of like nominating sites and that kind of thing. And so, but we want to be able to help others nominate sites and give recognition to these places. So I'll definitely be reaching out. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Awesome.
Maddie, I just wanted to ask quickly about, I love your enthusiasm, and I'm hoping that, you know, obviously that the project will find more than 25 to 50 potential sites, particularly for the reconnaissance level survey. I just wanted to ask you a little bit more about the process, you know, as those sites are found, you know, for bidding purposes, whether, you know, what the kind of prioritization would be for determining which of those sites we're actually going to do HPIs for, and, you know, how that kind of part of the process will evolve. Do you see the advisory committee being involved in that too, or is it primarily just DAHP and the consultants? So maybe just a little bit more background on how you, excuse me, view that particular process.
Yeah, absolutely. I think definitely the ones that have the most information, I would think, like that we have the most like attachments to attach to those HPIs and that kind of thing. But I would definitely love to get the input from the advisory council. And I have a feeling that as we reach out to the community more, there will be reoccurring places that come up. And so that'll kind of show which ones people have more stakes in, I guess, or really truly care about. So making sure that those are at least on recon HPIs are going to be super important. But yeah, I think kind of the process in terms of how we're going to do that is pretty up in the air. And I'm sure we'll look at, because obviously this has been in other underrepresented communities grants as well of choosing HPIs. So we'll reach out to the project managers for those past projects and consultants to figure out how they were selected as well. Any other questions?
I have one last question. And so, I know this, I will just echo everything about how exciting this project is, which I haven't said yet, and I should have, and because it's a great project. Because like the RFP emphasizes a lot is that this hasn't happened, but also because of that, I'm wondering, because these opportunities haven't come up for this specific community before so much, with the part of the RFP where it specifies having a demonstrated research and knowledge of this history, would something akin to demonstrated experience with other underrepresented communities be considered, or are we looking specifically for demonstrated LGBTQ plus community history experience?
Yeah, I think definitely specific to the LGBTQ community would be great, but I think what's so unique about the queer community in general is it's so intersectional in that all these other underrepresented communities are within this other community. So they're obviously there's with the other underrepresented grants that we've done with the Black community, the Filipino community, the Latino community, it's there are those nuggets within that of this history. So I think that would be really good to know in terms of what other underrepresented groups you've researched in the past.
Very cool. Thank you.
Sorry, that just brought up a question, and if it doesn't make sense, let me know. But it just, yeah, it makes me think about the way in which RFP is crafted, and if there was a way in which, community engagement could be incentivized or paid and compensated, right? Because it seems like it's on the other end when the sort of research / capital P preservation folks are the ones doing the contracting, and I'm not sure like what will be, what is the level of engagement for the advisory committee and compensation and that kind of model. Is that all up to the contractor, or how do y'all kind of set those parameters?
Yeah, that's definitely something I've thought about with other historic context statements that have been done for the LGBTQ community. I was talking with Shane about that as well, as like how they compensated the advisory council that they had. Theirs was a little bit more hands-off, I think, than I'm looking for, but that's definitely something that is on my mind. I don't think I have a fully crafted idea yet. Of course, these for just general community outreach opportunities, I'm hoping that we'll be able to incentivize people to come with like as it being a whole event rather than just coming and like sitting down and us like asking questions sort of thing. So having it be more of a networking event and community event. But yeah, no, that's definitely something that I have on my mind, but have not fully thought about quite yet. But thank you for the question.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, shameless plug. If somebody wants a community organizer to do community engagement, my email's in the chat. But would love to chat with y'all. Because I think that kind of work is super important. And that's the kind of work I do in education policy. So not in this space, but super related. So thank you. Thanks for hearing that.
Ten more minutes. So any other questions, general things at all? I'd love to leave 10 minutes or 10 seconds to ask that. Okay. Well, of course, this isn't your only opportunity to ask questions. Feel free to reach out to me via email or give me a call anytime if questions arise when you're creating the RFP. And yeah, really looking forward to working with you all on this and figuring out what it becomes in the future. So that's very much up in the air right now. So yeah, I just really appreciate you all for coming as well and listening and asking questions. I think this was great. So yeah, thank you all and have a great, I'll give you 10 minutes back of your time and have a great rest of your week.
Thank you for all of your
Thank
work
you.
on this, Maddie. It's great.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.